Hello and welcome to our webinar. Our special guest, Dr. Irene Pepperberg, will be on with us in a second, but we're going to wait a little bit so people have time to log in, and then we can all flock together for our webinar ahead of us. So in the meantime, I thought I would talk about getting used to this zooming, all this zooming that we're doing, zoom, zoom, zoom. I'm sure you might have heard that you can actually change your Zoom background. Hopefully you've heard of that. You can change your background so you could be virtually anywhere. And I thought I'd have fun with that and show you some of the Zoom backgrounds I have. I thought I'd take myself on a bird journey. So just for fun, I'll show you some ideas that I have. So let's get started. Here we are. Look, I'm in Brazil. Those are some peach-fronted conures. I feel like they're both perched on my shoulders. It's kind of cool. And then moving on, there's a Toco toucan. I feel like I'm perched among the branches with him. I thought this is something that'd be fun to, if you're on a call with your friends or family or fellow bird enthusiasts, check out some bird backgrounds. Like this one. Now I'm in the Pantanal. Those are some hyacinth macaws on the clay licks. Normally you wouldn't be able to get up this high on the clay licks, but in a virtual background, you can go anywhere. Like Australia. I'm not sure if you know this, but in Australia, I've heard, I want to go, haven't been there yet. If you go to like a park or like even a city center, while you'd see like normally pigeons or crows here, you'll see cockatoos, just cockatoos out in the wild. Imagine having a picnic in this park. Although I do wonder what they would do if you left your food unattended. And then cockatiels. Love cockatiels. This is like having a ginormous cockatiel perched on your arm or shoulder. Isn't he a cutie? Just want to give him a little pet. And then finally, since we are talking about some grays today, I thought you'd show you a background of some African grays in the wild. And I know that some people say that some people might think that African grays aren't very colorful, but this picture, I mean, how can you agree with that? They are very vibrant. They have, I mean, the red tails on these guys, and plus the different shades of gray, I think they're very colorful birds. So, and then, so you can see their son, looks like they're in the middle of taking off after being on the ground together. I'll show you the other side too. Anyways, thought that'd be fun. And I'm going to go back to my regular background. So just to give you some ideas, just have some fun with it. You can do a bunch of things, go anywhere you want in the world. And I decided that it'd be fun to do a bird tour. So I am going to go ahead and get this, hopefully people are logged in, and I'm going to go ahead and get things started. My name is Laura Doering, and I'm the host of the webinar today. Our topic is Inside Dr. Pepperberg's Lab, Life in the Time of Coronavirus. This is our third webinar, so yay. And if you missed our previous webinars, you can log on to lafeber.com and see the recordings of those. So even if you were joined us for the first two, you can rewatch them, and we'll be posting the webinars after they're recorded on the website, so lafeber.com. Before I introduce our special guest today, a reminder that we'll have a Q&A at the end of the webinar. So if you go to the bottom of your Zoom screen and you see the Q&A button, that's where you want to send your questions to. We will be getting to those at the end of the webinar, and if we don't get your question today, we will email you your question with the answer sometime in the near future, like very soon. You'll get an email link with the question and the answer. So please try to keep your questions relevant to the topic, because we will be doing a lot of topics in the future. So today we're gonna keep it questions about the Pepperberg and the lab. So now on to today's guest and topic. We have actually we've got a couple of special guests today, surprise guests for you. For those of you who are not familiar with Dr. Pepperberg, you are in for a treat. She is a lecturer and a research associate at Harvard University, and she is perhaps best known for her groundbreaking research that she started, I believe, more than 40 years ago with Alex the African Gray. And with his impressive cognitive abilities, Alex himself had admirers from all over the world. Today, his African Grays, Griffin and Athena, are carrying on Alex's legacy. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So when the stay safe, stay home directives started to take effect, most of us didn't have to worry about moving our birds anywhere. That wasn't the case for Dr. Pepperberg and her lab. So imagine, you're at your work one day and you get an email from the campus administrator saying, hey, we're closing down the campus. You guys all have to vacate. What do you do? What do you do when you're forced to relocate a lab? Where do the birds go? So to answer that question, we've got Dr. Pepperberg with us, and she's going to give us an update on what she and the birds are up to today. So Dr. Pepperberg, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And here, this is Griffin, who's in preening mode. Athena is in chewing mode on her cage and keeping quiet, which is really good. So this was, and those of you who've read my blog know the story, but it was really quite a shock. They had led us to believe initially that we'd be allowed to stay. We have a basement lab in Harvard University that we would have a skeleton's crew, but still it's a large enough lab that people could stay 6 feet away from one another. So you could have at least 2 people in the lab at a time. We'd be able to continue our research. It was just a matter of figuring out for whom it would be safe to come into lab. Because we didn't want people who would have to take public transportation, because that was, going to be a little bit dicey. But there were not enough people, who had cars, who, could do the whole thing. So we thought we were okay. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, you have to be out, and you have to be out in, you should be out in 24 hours, but we're going to give you 48. And it was like, gee, thanks. This is so. So we spent the first 24 hours in panic mode trying to find a place to go. And I was extremely fortunate. One of my research associates, name is Diana, she said, well, I have this house with a 3rd floor bedroom, and it's not, the size of the lab, but I think we could get 2 cages and, some of their equipment in. And, if people could help me take care of them, I'd be fine with this. And I'm thinking, lifeline. So the next day, one of my my junior lab manager came in at 9 a.m. and started packing. My senior lab manager with a postdoc, she actually was finishing up her doctorate. So this was Thursday. She was defending her doctorate on Tuesday. Now, anybody who knows this, when you're defending your doctorate in 4 or 5 days, you're in panic mode. You're working on your presentation. But instead, she and a postdoc from that lab came and got a U-Haul. It disinfected the U-Haul, it packed up the entire lab, and then carried it 3 floors up the stairs to this place, set it all up. I sat with the birds in a little cafe area at Harvard, trying to keep them calm as they watched all their things being moved away, out of the stuff. I didn't even leave them in the room because that really freaked them out. It was 13 hours. It took 13 hours to get everything moved, okay? When you start from the time they started until the time we actually got them into, brought them over to Diana's house.
That sounds like a complicated move, basically, that you had to do.
It was just, blah. And so we got them set up and, introduced them to the cages and gave them their dinner, and, it's like, fine. I snuck out, and we thought this was going to be, fine. So then the next day, Griffin spooks. He falls. He's a little bit arthritic, and he cracks his beak. So to make a long story short, emergency vet trip the next day. So I'm driving from where I live, which is 40 minutes to the student's house, and then it's another 40 minutes to the vet, okay? Where they have an emergency situation where you wait in the parking lot, and you have an appointment, but you wait in the parking lot, and then they come in and they take the birds and, and stuff like that. And then they bring them in and then they bring them back out to you and stuff. And anyway, the point was, he's fine. They cleaned out his beak. It wasn't a terribly bad crack, but it didn't need to be seen. And we put him on antibiotics and it's glued back together again. And, he's fine. Okay, so we think life is good, and we got a schedule for everybody to take care of everything. And she has to, and she's defending her, Suzanne is defending her thesis on Tuesday. So Tuesday morning, Diana calls and she says, well, we got some problems. And I'm going like, oh no, you know. She says, the first thing is Ronnie, the assistant lab manager, she's sick. She doesn't know if it's COVID or not, but she's sick. So she can't come in. And she said, and my husband and I flew 10 days ago, and they called us and said somebody on our plane had COVID. So we're in quarantine. So nobody can come to the house for another 4 days. So I'm sitting there thinking, this poor woman, she has her birds and my two who are so demanding. And I'm going like, are you okay? And she says, yeah, my husband's home with me. He'll take care of our bird and I'll take care of, you know, Griffin and Athena. I'm thinking, this woman, you know, we owe her our lives. So this is how this all starts. This is the start of this thing. So fortunately, she and her husband never got sick. Everything was fine. So then another one of my students who had been a volunteer, we said, you know, he said he's willing to work during this period. And we said, well, we're going to pay you now because this is, you know, this is hazard pay. So we basically have 3 of us coming in, plus Diana, taking care of Suzanne, me, and Ani. And Suzanne, we're pulling, you know, 11 hours a day, not all in one day, but 11-hour days for these birds. And we can't do any research because to do the research, you need somebody asking questions, somebody being a blind observer to make sure there's no queuing and things like that. And it's only one person at a time. I mean, this is a small bedroom. You know, this is perfectly adequate. I mean, the birds there's plenty of room for their cage. There's room for our little fridge. There's, you know, it's fine. I mean, it's gorgeous. There's huge floor to ceiling windows that they can look out and things, but, you know, you can only have one person at a time. So no research. And the birds are just going like, woo, we don't have to work. Well, you're just going to tickle us for, you know, 11 hours a day practically, or let us chew on our toys and things. So, I mean, I'm really thankful that everybody's healthy and happy, that we can manage this schedule, but it's, you know, it's brutal. I mean, you know, it's brutal. Suzanne pulls 2 11-hour shifts to take care of them. I'm driving in again 40 minutes each way, and that's without traffic, you know, to see them for, you know, 5-hour shifts at a time. You know, Diana's picking up all these little bits and pieces of time. She's worked several mornings, several evenings, you know, take care of them. So it's crazy.
So question for you, are they trying to keep the birds on like the same, like somewhat schedule, like sleep, wake, eat schedules?
Or? Yeah, we do. We have the same basic schedule. Somebody comes in at 9 a.m., starts breakfast for them, cleans the cages. They even get their physical therapy a couple of times a week, not every day the way they used to, but, you know, a couple of times a week. Noon, they have their lunch, okay, lunchtime. When I come in, it's at 1 o'clock, the shift. And then usually well, I did it early today because I didn't want to do it while we were doing the webinar. Usually about 2:30 or 3, I put them back up on their cages and they have like their mid-afternoon snacks. And then 5 o'clock is dinner time, which is a cooked dinner. And then I leave about 6, and then Diana comes in from 7 to 8 and basically entertains them. And then 8 o'clock is bedtime. So, you know, and she also, believe it or not, she has light, light blackout shades in this room. So, you know, when they have their nighttime, it's nighttime, which is really good for them. So they're really adjusting. I mean, we've not seen any feather plucking. We've not seen any crazy behavior, except this kind of, you know, he really gets into this preening frenzy when I'm here. And it's like, it's though he's saying, well, this is the only time I really feel safe and I can do my preening. You know, so yeah.
Have they taken up any, they're pretty much on the same schedule that they're used to. Have you or the caretakers noticed anything that they've added to their routine or any behaviors that might be new, or are they pretty much?
No, they're pretty much sticking to it. I mean, they're spending more time, Athena's spending more time in her cage, you know, chewing on her toys. You know, it's basically, I mean, we try to work with them a little bit just to review things. We can't do anything new, but we try to do most review. And they look at us like, I'm sorry, we're not in lab. we're not, this is our vacation, forget it. So I think they're, they're okay with all this. Yeah, tickle. That's the one word you keep saying.
Do you think it's
Um,
easier that there's two of them? So maybe they're kind of know
yeah,
that, hey, we're in this together, like a
I
little
think
bit.
so. I think so. And Diana has her own gray. And sometimes when he has this enormous 2-story gorgeous atrium. And on the side of the atrium, he has a cage. So he can go in and out of his cage and out this atrium. But he's also figured out that he can climb up the stairs. And sometimes he sits outside the door and whistles to my guys. So Griffin thinks of it as like, wait a minute, this is a threat. And Athena's like, oh, of course, my, 2 males looking after me. Ah, how cute.
Oh, that's great. So does Griffin does he like to do like walkabouts? Is he like the walker guy of the bunch of the flock? And
No, neither of them are big walkers. I mean, we basically, when they're in the lab, they know they're supposed to be on their cages or on their perches or, on us. So we've trained them that, walking around is absolutely a no-no because it's dangerous. I mean, having a bird on the floor, is really dangerous. I mean, you can step on them. You can all sorts of stuff. So no,
yeah, you definitely have to know where they all are at all times because yeah, you just don't know. And so are they? So they're pretty used to. Are they used to maybe some different faces coming in and out of the lab typically, or is it? I know in the past you've written about how they have their favorites. It seems like they do have their favorites, right?
people, yeah. But we usually have in the summer we have about 10 students working because the students can have longer shifts because there's no classes. And in the winter we have sometimes up to 15, 16 students working on these different shifts. So they're used to a certain group of people, and they know the people and things like that. And I'm not sure quite how they're adjusting to this idea of just the 4 of us, but they seem okay.
Do they have a preference for like male or female? Just because some birds do.
Yeah, not really. Not really. Although interestingly, the majority of the people working in the lab are female.
Huh.
And I'm not sure, if that's because the majority, a lot of the psych students are female, but there are more female students in the psych department than male. But we have a lot of organismal biology students as well. And it just, I mean, usually when you look at the composition of the lab, it's generally about, 75% female, 25% male. And that's just the way it's been. So
And there's not a difference between Athena or Griffin with who they might.
not really. I mean, it's more the individual people. I mean, Athena is absolutely crazy about both Ronnie and Diana. And I mean, if they're not there, she wants to be on me. But as soon as, Ronnie walks in, she goes, Ronnie, this kind of little squeaky Ronnie. And she's like, that's it. I'm chopped liver.
Oh, that's great. If you could just, if you don't mind, giving us a little bit more detail about the different personalities between the two of them.
Yeah. Well, Griffin, I mean, okay, so you start with Alex. I mean, Alex was, yes, okay, I won't stop. You can hear that, it's like tick.
Yeah.
Alex was really curious. He liked to figure things out. He really had fun working. I mean, for him, it wasn't work. It was a challenge. It was cute. It was, what can I do to get you guys to pay attention to me? He used to dominate Griffin like crazy. So we would be trying to train Griffin and we'd say, Griffin, what color? And Alex would, in the next cage, go, no, tell me what shape. And Griffin would look at Alex, look at me, shrug his little birdie shoulders and go, oh, yeah, to him and to you, I don't know what to do. Or Griffin would say, great. And Alex would say, talk clearly, say better. And was all the things that we would say to him, but he was using it on Griffin. So Griffin's got to he's the little guy, tell me what I have to do to get the A. And he'll do it. He's really, really smart. You give him a task and he's like, okay, I got this, and he crunches right through it. But he's not innovative. He doesn't like to solve problems. It's like, just show me what I have to do and I will do the task and we're good to go. Athena, she is totally mischievous. She can talk, but she doesn't want to. I mean, she literally will sit there and you ask her a word and she looks at you like, I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about. And yet if she really wants something, she will say the word. So there was one time one of the students forgot to put her water dish back on her cage. And all of a sudden we hear this water, water. I mean, she'd never said it before. She hasn't said it since. But the water was missing, so she made it clear to us.
So she knew it. She didn't say it before.
She's devious. She loves to chew buttons, which is obviously a no-no, and she loves to sit on shoulders. So she's trained. She's supposed to, if she's sitting on your shoulder, she's just sitting there, she's preening or she's playing with the toy. But she's devious. So one of my students had a button-down shirt, and she kept going after the button on that button-down shirt, and we kept, nope, Athena, and giving her a timeout. And then go shoulder, so we put her back on the shoulder. We did this several times. So finally she's sitting on the shoulder and she goes, ring. So we go, oh, okay. So we give her a plastic ring for her to chew, and she's chewing on it, and we think, great. And then we're doing something else, and the student who has her on her shoulder is entering data. And all of a sudden I look over and Athena has put the ring around the button. So it looks like she's chewing the ring, but she's chewing off the button. I mean, this is,
Yeah. So it sounds like Alex kind of took the role of like the older sibling, the one who's typically the older sibling of a group, is like the go-getter, the one who puts the younger siblings in check. Is that kind of how your experience was?
Yeah. And Griffin, even though now he's the older sibling, he's still, just tell me what to do to get the A. And just, and he tolerates her. He's never aggressive unless she really gets in his face. I mean, then he'll be aggressive. But, if they're just near one another, he's not aggressive towards her. But if she gets too close, he'll take his, and gives her a beak whack. Not hard, but just whacks her beak. Is like, you're in my space. Just, come on, get away. It's like he treats her, it's sort of like, the teenage boy whose mom is remarried and had another baby. It's like, okay, just keep her, keep her out of my face. She's cute, but, all right.
So are they like typical siblings that would be like, stay out of my stuff? Like, those are my toys, my food, stay away?
Yeah. I mean, initially it was really funny. So we would put their food dishes next to one another on one of our counters, and they would sit next to one another eating. And then Athena would gently, push Griffin off his, and they'd trade bowls. And then they'd eat, because they like different things from the bowls. And he'd go like, oh yeah, I get more of her, this, and she gets more of, and so it was fine. Then she started thinking it was just fun. And so he's like, you're not letting me eat. You're just, she's just moving him. As soon as he started eating, she'd kick him off the bowl, and he'd start to eat again. He'd give him, the other bowl. So we had to stop that, because it was like.
Yeah. That's funny. That reminds me of sometimes it's like when you want to get a like when my bird, I would try something new to eat. I would pretend like I wasn't going to give it to them, like it was mine, and it made them
that's the only way.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when we introduce some new foods and things, we have to eat them, and that's the only way. It was really funny though. She came to me. She loves vegetables, and she was 4 months when I got her. She loves vegetables, and she adores Swiss chard. Griffin does not, even though I've had him his whole life. I've introduced several vegetables. He does eat vegetables, but there's a limited number. So he watches her eat this chard, and he thinks, oh my God, this must be the most wonderful food in the world, as she's, chowing it. And every time this happens, he wants some, and he goes, he has a sort of a a little squeaky thing that he uses. And, we give him a bite and he goes, woo, he hates it, but he just can't figure out what it is about it, but she loves it so much. So he keeps wanting to try it. It's really funny.
Oh, so I have a couple of questions for you. One
cool.
of them is like going on from Carol. She asks, can you be specific on what you feed your birds? I noticed that you mentioned a few meals. Is the food put out and so much time passes and then you have to take it away?
Yeah, what we do is breakfast is it's chopped vegetables, mostly chopped vegetables. Okay. We, it's all whatever in season that's healthy for them. And then we, after they eat it a bit, we, take it away. And then lunch is cooked grains. Okay. And then dinner is another set of cooked grains. These are all organic. It's a mixture of all sorts of, beans and rice and all, I don't know what's all in there, but it's whole big stuff of vegetables and things. It's dried, and then we rehydrate it and cook it. They always have, there's always water with vitamins and things in it, and they've got pellets and they've got dried pasta in their dishes at all times, which they can always go for. So, yeah, I mean, and then, it's not that they don't try to bum the odd French fry off the student, but, the students they're told they're not supposed to share their food. I don't, I'm not there 24/7, so I don't know. But basically, they're on it's all organic fruits and vegetables. We're really fussy about that because, they weigh a pound and they actually eat an amazing amount. I mean, Athena will go through a 2-inch chunk of fresh corn every day. I mean, that's a lot of corn for a 1-pound parrot. I mean, she basically eats out the heart, the little germ of the thing. But, you think about how much they eat for their 1-pound size, and the pesticide load would be crazy. So, yeah.
Do you take it away after a certain amount of time, or
Yeah,
is it?
yeah. When it starts, I mean, at the end of it, after each meal, before the next meal, we clean it all out and we put fresh stuff in. Yeah. And then before they go to bed, we remove it. And then they just have the dried food in their cages overnight.
Oh, that's their. They could take that dry pasta, put it in their water bowl, and have a noodle.
That's true. But they, one of my birds, okay, Kyaro, who was one bird in my lab for a while, he used to do that.
Oh, really?
He used to dunk his pasta until it was, not really soft, but softer. And he would only eat it after it softened up.
Let's see. Okay, so I have a couple more questions from some participants today. Okay, this comes from Jake. He's age 9. Let's see, Ariana sent this in. How do birds whistle out human words?
Well, he means how they talk them. It's really fascinating. This is an incredible question. So birds have a different vocal tract from ours. Okay, we have something called the larynx up over here, and that's where we produce our sounds. Birds have a syrinx, and for Griffin, it's right about there. It's at the base of his trachea, and right at the point where the trachea branches into the lungs. I know, you don't want me poking around there, okay? So it's called the syrinx, and that's their sound source. And the sound goes up through the trachea, which changes things just very slightly, and then it goes into their larynx and their glottis and their beak and their tongue. They use their beak and their tongue the way we do. So think about going ah and e, and all the way your tongue and your mouth is different. They do the same thing. So they use all these beak opening and closing and tongue back and forth and up and down to make the sounds. And to make what we call plosives, p and b, because they don't have lips, they use what we call esophageal speech. The way people who have had laryngectomies kind of burp, their p's and b's, that's what they do. So that's a very, very good question.
Great. I have another one. Yeah. David asks, any particular reason why you chose to work with the Congo African greys versus Timneh greys? Is there any reason?
Okay, so when I started this work, which was over 40 years ago, the only greys available were Congos. I mean, people were not importing Timnehs at that point at all, nor were they being bred in the States. So, or if they were, it was very rare. Even the grays were rare because people mostly wanted the bright green birds and the bright, red and macaws and things like that. And the reason I chose a gray was because there was previous work done in Germany and in Russia on the intelligence of the gray parrots. And if you think about importation, it's much easier to import parrots from Africa into Europe and Russia. So that's why they had the grays initially and not the Amazonians. And they're also really clear speakers.
And they're good mimics too, right? Okay, let's see what other questions we have here. What is their evening entertainment like? How do they spend their afternoons? They're not binge watching Netflix, I imagine.
No, they're not watching binge Netflix. I mean, basically, in the evenings after work is over for them, it's essentially this preening type thing. They will sit on their favorite people, and they will preen and get their tickles. Alex and Griffin also, they like what's called spoon tickles. So some of the students who are a little bit nervous of the beaks, they use a spoon, and they use the spoon to tickle their heads and their bodies, the edge of the spoon. And so the birds like that too. Yeah.
Interesting. Some birds, they get a little freaked out if there's something other than like a hand coming towards them.
Right. Yeah. And it's like when Griffin was a chick, it was really funny because one of the students who started this using the spoon tickle, so Griffin sees a spoon on the counter and he picks it up and he holds it over his head and nothing happens. And he gets really angry and he throws it and he screams. It's like, this is supposed to do this. He was about a year old and he hadn't figured out that, there was agency involved in this kind of thing, that he couldn't just do it on its own.
All right, so Mike had a question for you. He says, I've always wanted to ask you this. What was the first indication that the birds understood you instead of repeat?
I'm sorry. Instead of, okay, I think we've frozen a little bit here.
Oh, you did, yeah. I'll repeat it. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so Mike wanted to ask you, what was the first indication that the birds understood you instead of, repeat, instead of repetitive?
Yeah, well, basically we had, Alex learned his first word, which was paper, which he said is ater, because the p at that point he hadn't figured out how to say it. And the second word was key. And the idea was when he, started asking them, and if I gave him the wrong one, he threw it at me. We knew he understood exactly what those things meant. Because he had said, ater, and I gave him the wrong thing to see what was going on. He, throws the key and goes, ater. So yes.
Is that kind of an aha moment, like for you?
Yeah, it's like we knew what was going on. Yes.
Oh. All right. So Lydia asks, how old is Griffin? And do you clip the gray's wing feathers or do you let them fly? Are they fully flighted or do they have wing feather trims, essentially?
Okay, so Griffin is 25. Which date was last week. So, yeah, he's 25. Athena will turn 7, also last week. We don't trim their feathers, but unfortunately, there was a period when I was traveling an awful lot when Griffin was a chick. And the students, when he did his first flight, the students trimmed his feathers they were worried and they trimmed them way too far. And that triggered a bunch of wing plucking, feather picking things in my absence and stuff. So the feather beds of his primaries are damaged and they just don't grow in. So, and Athena, her feathers are there, but she doesn't fly very much. We were teaching her to fly on command. So just, basically, and the lab is not big enough that she could really fly. It was more a matter of gliding, from our hand back to her cage and things like that. But one point I don't know exactly what happened. I wasn't there, but she hit a wall, damaged all the feathers on one side, and it took a long time for them to grow back. And so she basically doesn't quite understand flight because she missed that real period of learning how to fly. So, I mean, she knows how to, if she, something spooks her and she, falls off a perch or something, she will glide down to the floor. But she knows she's not supposed to just take off and fly. If she's in the middle of the session, flying off is not an option. And she'll get an extremely long time out at that point. So, I mean, and Griffin has enough feathers that, he can also sort of flutter down, because he, and stuff. And we kind of fly them a little bit around the lab. So students will kind of run with them and get them to flap their wings when we're in the lab, so that they keep the musculature up, because that's, again, and they get some exercise, because they are, the flapping, they're breathing hard. I mean, we are trying to get them to do that, but the lab is way too small for real free flight anyway. It's just not that big. It's about 400 square feet.
Oh, wow. So they're doing flapping. Is that part of their routine?
We go wings, and we sort of, they know that means that they're going to be, flapping around.
Nice. Okay, so then we have a question from Heather. She actually has a question about the birds. Did they show any signs of mourning when Alex passed away?
Yes. So Griffin really, he wouldn't talk. Hey, Athena, cool it. He wouldn't talk or work for several months. I mean, he just, he just sat there. He just wouldn't do anything for several months. Arthur, I don't think, really cared, because Alex and Griffin sort of would, Alex and Griffin weren't that good friends. When we got Arthur, it was the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So the two of them would gang up on Arthur. So Arthur was, just like, oh, and he would start challenging Griffin for the, alpha spot. And Griffin's actually a big bruiser of a bird. He's 500 grams. And he would just look at Arthur and go, not on my watch here. But so it was tough.
Yeah.
Athena, no screaming. Yeah, I love you too, but no screaming. I might have to pick her up in a little bit.
Oh, okay. So we have a question from Donald. He wants to know, have the birds developed any new routines that surprise you, or that might interfere with when you resume lab work once everything's back to normal?
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried that when we go back, this whole idea of just hanging out for 11 hours a day, interspersed with eating and, preening, might be tough. But I'm hoping that when we get back to the laboratory situation, that it will be situation dependent learning, so they realize we're back in lab, we have to work. But I'm worried about it. I really am.
Is there any kind of
I'm gonna put this aside for a minute and grab her, because she's gonna scream so loud she's going to. Griffin, sit up there for a minute so I can go get her.
Okay.
Come on.
I'm sure we can all relate. If you've got birds in your house, when you're on the phone or online, sometimes that's when our birds are the most vocal.
All right, come on. You sit here for now and let me get Griffin back. Griffin, you have to go poo? This would be a good time to go poo, yes. Good boy. All right, climb.
This is just like our own houses here. These we can all relate.
All right. So now she's on a perch right next to me. Here, you want to just say hi to people? Here, you can come say hi briefly. Here she is. But yeah, you can't get too close to Griffin. Yeah, I know.
Oh, she's got the red feather.
Yes, she has red feathers on her neck. Okay.
I think.
Okay.
So do you have any pre kind of like pre-exercises you might have them do before they get back to the lab, so to speak? Or are
I
they
don't know. I mean, we'll try. I mean, today I was trying to get her to identify some toys, and she's just looking at me like, I don't think so. Tickle, very clear tickle, and that was it. So yeah.
Or have you been inspired by anything that you thought, hey, that might be a good thing to try with them, since you're in a different setting? Has it sparked any kind of potential studies in the future?
No, I mean, there's what really triggers most of the things are going to seminars and, especially a lot of the child developmental work and having people give guest lectures in my classes and things. So we just had a fellow talking about crows, the New Caledonian crow tool use. And so he was asking if we had tried any of these, tool use things with the grays. And I said, they're more the Gordian knot approach to, solving problems, use their beak and just tear it all apart. But, we might try something, but I don't know. It's hard for them to use tools with their beaks. Their beaks are not made for tool use. They're made for basically tearing things apart.
Right. That's true. That's true. And climbing, right? Because that's how they get
Yes.
around. Oh, I have the question going back to food. It says, Shannon says, hello, pleasure to be here. Do your birds eat sprouts? And if so, do you keep them bacteria safe?
No, we don't use sprouts because it's really tough to keep them bacteria safe.
Okay.
We tried for a while, and after, a couple of rounds of issues. I mean, I know they're super healthy and I know they're great, but it's just, I think if I were at home and I had more control, I might try it, but not in the lab.
Okay, that's true. Let me see here. I've got a question from Bruce, and he says, I have several grays and really confused in sexing them. Light color is female and dark color is males. So is that always true? He wants to know, can you tell the sexes apart in African grays?
Okay. Okay, come here, Athena. So, I think I won't say I'm very good. I'm about 60%, so that's not much above chance. But the females tend to have, I think, have a much more delicate beak. And they look just a little bit more delicate than the males in general. But it's really hard. I mean, as I said, I'm only about 60% correct. When I see a new gray and I say, is that a male or a female? I'll say, well, that's going to be, and there'll be somebody that'll introduce their bird as Leopold, and I'm going like, are you sure? And they'll go, yeah, it's a female, but but I think there's it's very hard, and you really need to sex them, blood sex, do the DNA.
And that's not too intrusive nowadays. It's pretty easy to get a DNA
Oh
test.
yeah. I mean, it's basically, when they do. I mean, if you are taking care of your bird appropriately and you bring them into the vet for their checkups, at least once a year, preferably twice a year, that takes a blood sample to test for all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
All right, let me see what else we've got here. We got a couple shout outs for you. Some people you might remember, some names that's familiar to you. Where did it go? Of course, we've got some shout outs. Here we go. Hang on one second. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll through here. Okay. Do you remember, let's see, me and Tobiel? This is Mother Dolores Hart. She's on with us.
Yes. Oh, hi. Hello. Oh, that's so good to see you.
She wanted to say hello with her new boy, Bo.
Oh.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, it's so good to hear from you. I'm so glad I hope you're doing well and everything's okay. Yeah.
And we've also, I believe, where to go? Arlene. Arlene wants to send her best to former manager, the lab there.
Yes. Hello. Yeah.
Sure she can relate to some of your stories there because she's
oh, she used to take Alex for over Christmas break sometimes. So yeah.
Oh wow. And just going back to Alex and the other Grays, how long did Alex, was he with the other ones? Like how long did they spend together? Like
in terms of years or time?
Yeah.
They overlap. So Alex was 15 when we got Griffin, and he passed away at 31. So they overlapped for about 16 years. Yeah. And then and then we had Arthur, we got Arthur in the lab. When I moved to the media lab, I had Arthur for a year in '99, and then alone. And then I moved the other birds up in 2000, and then he passed away in 2013.
So
So
they
then,
take a lot of time.
yeah, and then we got Athena that summer. Hey, sweetie.
And she's the youngster by a good deal.
Yeah. And for a while we had Aloe and Chiaro in the lab, but they had their own rooms, so it wasn't as intense. Because we're in Arizona, all the birds had their own rooms.
Okay.
And they only spent, we had like certain times a day when they would all, socialize. But during training and testing and things, they all had their own rooms. And then when we moved to Boston, that was no longer possible. I know you don't want her on my hand, because if she's on my hand, I can't tickle you.
So I have
And
another.
you're not going to chew my computer. You're going to sit right there.
Got your hands full. So we have a question from Darren. They ask, "Hello, and thank you for all your work and this time with you. We all have amazing stories of the intelligence of our birds. Do you feel that what you've discovered with the grays basically applies to all parrots in varying degrees? And
Yes.
or are some species smarter than others, so to speak? Do you believe that?"
I think there's a lot of individual differences even within the species. That some birds are, just like some people are smarter than others, some birds are smarter than others. I think one of the problems when you look at across species is that some of the birds like to, play more. Some are more studious. I mean, grays are like the little guys in the three-piece suit with the pocket protectors. I mean, they're not nearly as playful as, say, Kias. Okay. Cockatoos love to play with toys. I mean, cockatoos, I have colleagues who are doing research on cockatoos in Vienna. And I mean, the kind of tool use behavior those birds do is just completely unbelievable. My guys would never do anything like that. I mean, they just wouldn't, so, and they're different. I mean, so there's different ecological niches that these birds are, basically evolutionarily adapted for. And, so there are some species differences, but if you look at just intelligence as a general ability, okay, there may be different types of intelligences, but I think all the species are really, these birds are really smart as a group.
Okay, and David asked, what's the most recent interesting discovery that you've encountered during your research? Is there one thing that really stands out that was surprising?
Oh gosh, there's so much stuff. But the most recent thing, the paper is in press. It should be coming out fairly soon. We did a study, and I'm going to write about it as soon as it gets into press, and I'm hoping to write about it next month. But it's basically, it's called visual working memory manipulation, and it's essentially a very complex shell game. So imagine you have 4 colored pom-poms on a tray, and you cover them with 4 little black cups, and then you move them around 4 times. Okay. So in the normal shell game, you might have 4 things, but you're tracking only one of them. And I tell you at the beginning, track the white one. But this time, I'm making them track all of them. And then I say, when I've done all the movements, I say, now find the yellow one. And Griffin is, if you've got only 2 movements instead of 4, he is better than adult humans on tracking. When you get to 3 and 4, he's better than 8-year-old children. He's not as good as adult humans, but he's still better than 8-year-old children. And for you and me, if we give us 5 things and no movements and try to remember where 5 things are, we're only about 85%. He's at 100% for 5. So there's something about their ecological, and we think it has something to do with the fact that, okay, grays can have up to 4 chicks, and you think about the 4 chicks bouncing around, and they have to remember which chick you fed, even though they're moving around in the nest and all squawking and being obnoxious, so that they somehow have to keep track of this. We think that's the reason, but yeah, so that, you know, it's not a vocal behavior, but it's really cool. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's very exciting. Yeah, that's
Yeah. So
gonna keep
that, as I said, that paper should be coming out fairly soon. We just have
great.
to proof it.
And then hopefully we'll have a blog on that
Yeah.
to the results of that. So let's see. Oh, just a reminder to those who are tuning in to please use the Q&A feature if you have a question. That way, if we don't get your question too, we can also email your the question and the answer later on too. So use the Q&A button, please, if you have a question for Dr. Pepperberg. So let's see here. I've got. Okay, so someone wanted, Marla asked, how do you get Athena to stop screaming? My 23-year-old, my gray, who's 23, screams at 9:30 and 10 at night, and I have not been able to get him to stop. So apparently he has a designated scream time.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, in the evening, screaming behavior is actually normal at night, because in the wild, when they get to their flocks just before sunset, okay, just sunset, they're communicating. They've gone off, they have flocks. It used to be like 700 birds in a flock. Now it's more like about 100, and that's really the sad part. But the point is they get to the night roost. And when they go off during the day, they go off in small groups. And so when they get back there at night, they're all communicating with one another. It's like, hey, George, did you make it through? Yes, Susan, yeah, right, you know. So they're basically, so that's one of the things they do to make sure everybody is there. So the night screaming, unfortunately, it's normal. I can't say that I like it. And one of the things that we do to stop it is we basically, it's a standard thing you do with a toddler. Oh, look at this fun toy to play with. Look at this, you know, we basically distract them and give them something else. So you heard she was screaming in the cage. So I brought her out, and she's now sitting with us, and she's getting tickles and stuff. And, you know, I mean, basically we use a distraction behavior. I know that there's a lot of people who say just ignore it. And that works sort of at other periods, possibly during the day. But the nighttime screaming is just so, I think it's part of their behavior. And to get them to stop doing something like that, we just have to distract them.
All right, so I think we're winding down with our time here, but I have a final question for you from Julie. So she asks, do you see an increased level of intelligence in the larger birds, which presumably have a larger brain? What is known about the differences in the neuroanatomy and its cognitive correlates in birds of different sizes, different species?
Oh, good question. We don't know yet, okay, because there haven't been enough studies on all the different, smaller versus bigger parrots. Most of the brain work has been either, ouch, gentle Missy. So a lot of the stuff has been done on basically the larger birds. I know that when we try to do some work on the parakeets, the little budgerigars, their attention span is, I don't think it's so much intelligence, but it's attention span. It was just harder to get them to attend to things. It was like working with a little bit of an ADD type child. So, we don't know. I think there are probably some differences, but we just don't know yet. So it's a question, the point is, I mean, these brain studies, nobody likes to take parrots and just off them for brains. So what has generally been done is basically working with places where we get permission, so that if the bird is in a sanctuary and it passes, or it's dying, okay, that we have the vet there. And so when the bird dies, they immediately can take the brain without sacrificing the bird just for the sake of sacrificing it. So the number of birds available, I mean, it's not like you're going to go buy a macaw and use it for that. So that's what, the colleagues that I know have been doing it that way. So it's opportunistic as to, how you can get the brains to work with.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if you don't mind, just while we have the last bit of our time here, I do want to to let people know and remind them that of the Alex Foundation. If you could just give us a little snippet of what that is and how people can be part of it.
Yeah, well, okay, so the Alex Foundation was set up to basically support our research. We have no government grants, no NIH money, no NSF money, none of that stuff. It's just really hard. There's the funding from those things are like 3% of grants are funded, and they're funding basically the kind of work that's, you know, more likely to lead to applied projects. So we set up the Alex Foundation to run the research. So it's all, absolutely everything that we do is funded by donations that people give us. If you go to our website, www.alexfoundation.org, you can, you know, click on the donate button, and you can do it by PayPal or credit card or, you know, whatever. We have all different ways. Right now, our gift store is closed because we can't ship anything and get to anything. But if you want cool summer t-shirts, you can go to the Teespring. There's a button to go to Teespring, and you get all sorts of t-shirts and sweatshirts and hoodies and things, and we get quite a bit of money from that. So you can buy some of that stuff still, and hopefully we'll have the work on. We were going to, in honor of Griffin's 25th hatch day, we were going to have a big fundraiser trying to get $25,000 for his each, you know, $1,000 for each year of his life. And we did have a one of our donors had said that she would match that, but I know right now, I know it's really tough for a lot of people, and I know a lot of people are really hurting. So we're not sure when we're gonna, you know, do that, but we really do need the help. I mean, Harvard has mandated that we pay our people whether or not they're working. So, you know, we're chunking through funds without necessarily, you know, with only a few of us here doing the stuff. So yeah, and again, we will, you know, it's also putting things off. So all this time, you know, it's been a month now since we've done any work, and we're, you know, crunching through the grant from the foundation. So we're going to have to make that up at the other end.
Okay, and I just let all of our viewers know today, we'll have that information for the Alex Foundation on the webinar recast on lafeber.com. Cool. We'll have a recording of this webinar, and we'll include the link for the Alex Foundation so that people can check it out, see what it's about. Well, I think that's basically our time for today, and I wanted to really thank you for your time, Dr. Pepperberg, and Griffin, thank you for being a good little birdie there, got all those feathers preened, and Athena, thank you for making an appearance. and
be quiet.
Well, all the best to you guys, and I hope we have you on very soon. So just wanted to say thank you, big thank you. I'm sure that a lot of people really enjoyed you know, having time with you today. So thank you very, very much. And then just to let everyone know, we hope that you'll come back for next week's webinar. We're going to be talking with Dr. Thomas Tolley. He's a professor of veterinary services at Louisiana State University. And he is going to be talking about general care and nutrition. And you can actually send him a question about your bird. So keep a lookout for our webinar announcement for next week, same time. Same place. So in the meantime, stay healthy, stay safe, and all the best to you and your flock. And thank you for tuning in today. Bye, guys.
Okay. Take care.
You too. Bye.